Hi, I'm Rachel, and I'm a kidney donor. In 2012, I donated a kidney to a man in Pennsylvania and started a kidney chain through the National Kidney Registry. It wasn't until 2010 that I even knew what a kidney chain was. I was watching the news in 2010, and Katie Couric did a segment on kidney chains and how so many lives can be saved through a chain reaction. It just needs to start with one person who has a kidney to give and no one in their lives to give it to. And that sounded like me. I didn't think much about kidney disease until I saw that episode on Katie Couric's news piece. I didn't have anyone in my family or close friends who had any kind of kidney disease, and it really didn't come up in any conversation until I saw that segment. When I learned about kidney failure and what that means for someone, it looked really grim to me. I mean, kidney failure means you have no way to filter the bad stuff out of your body, which means then you are committed to a machine to do that for you, which can't happen forever. It can only happen until if and when you're able to get a transplant, which then gives you a new lease on life. But that dialysis machine, which some people can do from home, some people have to travel to a facility to do it many times a week at many hours each time, really change you to your illness. You can't really do many other things that you had enjoyed or done before because you have to devote so much time to cleaning your blood in a dialysis center or through a dialysis machine. So I looked at the economic impacts of this. Many people can't sustain a job or employment because they have to maintain all of this time in dialysis. So it's a lot of loss of livelihood that folks experience because of their illness. It's really expensive to be on dialysis as well. So if you're looking at it from an economic perspective, which I did, thinking about how this helps people economically, is dialysis costs so much more than having a transplant. And dialysis happens for years and years versus a transplant happening once and being able to sustain a kidney after that. So it would allow you, if you were a recipient, to go back to maintaining your life before your kidney disease. If you were to have a transplant, it would allow you the freedom and economically allow you to get back to the things that you loved and enjoyed and experience life through a whole new lens. Folks with kidney disease, from what I understand, have a few choices, one being dialysis, another being a transplant. And it wasn't until after I watched the news segment and talking with my family that there were pieces of this world that entered into my life that I didn't even know, for me to understand how impactful it is for someone to be dealing with kidney disease and then have a transplant. My dad worked for several years as a driver for a community nonprofit that helped people who didn't have access to transportation go to their doctor appointments and go grocery shopping and all of these things. And what he mentioned to me is that many of his trips, when he would pick someone up, many of them we're taking someone to the dialysis center, and he would get to know these folks on a first name basis because he picked them up many times a week in order to take them to dialysis and then take them back home. And hearing him say that so many people in our community had this affect their lives made me realize that the issue of kidney disease and kidney failure is maybe common in all of our communities. I just didn't realize it at the time. I did not realize that kidney disease affected so many people, but it definitely does. I ultimately decided to donate my kidney for a couple of reasons. One being, I was watching that news segment in 2010 with Katie Couric talking about kidney chains and the National Kidney Registry. And it's during the month of November, which is my birthday month, that I normally do something to pay my good fortune forward. I donate blood, I attend a fundraiser, and do something to celebrate life. And for her to be showing a news segment on kidney donation in my birthday month, I thought it was an important segment to pay attention to. At the same time, I had my grandma's voice whispering in my head because she was a very strong advocate for organ donation. That has to do with the death of my Uncle Ed. When I was barely a teenager, my uncle passed away, and he became a donor. And so my grandma would talk about him through my life, and all of the good things that he had done in his life, and even in his death, how he saved folks all across the country. And the organ procurement organization where my Uncle Ed was a donor sent Grandma a letter and let her know the many lives that he saved. So he has saved lives all the way from Puerto Rico to South Bend, Indiana. And my grandma made it a point to share that information with us a lot of times around the holidays when she was missing him, and any other time she had a down day and she wanted to honor his life, she would share that information with us. So it felt like a natural thing for me to look into, and that is exactly what I did. I did the research, I talked to my husband and my family, and then it made perfect sense, and I signed up. When I talked to my husband about this, he was fully supportive because he is a fantastic person and knows I don't often make big decisions like this without doing a little homework, at least a little homework. Our parents, however, were not so eager to celebrate this idea. And even though we were in our 30s, I was 35, they still felt this motherly, fatherly mentality of wanting to protect you from harm, which I totally understand, but it gave us an option to have, or an opportunity to have a teachable moment so that I could learn these things and understand the impacts of kidney donation on me and on other people, and share that with my family so that they can understand it and be put at ease a bit over the decision. What it also did was allow our extended family and our community to realize the potential of doing this, and that anyone really could if they had a notion to. The information is very readily available on the internet, and there's several people across the country who have already donated their kidney while alive, being a living donor, that allow us to have some good resources when we're making a decision like this, and the confidence in knowing that Medical advancements are fantastic, and policies are put in place that enable folks who are healthy enough to donate, but you are medically tested beyond belief to ensure that you are able to donate a kidney and still live a fantastic life with just one. So I was able to put a lot of people's anxieties at ease by the research and the information that was available online. And I continue to do that to this day. I have lots of folks who call and ask me questions about donation, and give my experiences and share my story with them as well. So it is a good opportunity and a very good teachable moment for us all when we learn about the potential things that we can all do to help our neighbor. And the whole donation decision and process to me was relatively easy. Making the decision, doing the research, having the surgery, it all felt very normal to me. But it really wasn't until after the surgery, when I came home, that was the part that was probably the hardest. Not that it was recovery was hard, it wasn't hard at all. But coming home and not having anyone like you, I guess, is the issue. Not having a network so much so created where you can connect with people who are like you very easily. So it wasn't until a few weeks after I got home that I had a friend give me a call, and I haven't heard from him in a few years, but he heard about my donation and he called, and he was a kidney pancreas recipient. And he invited me to come to one of his meetings with the advocacy group that he volunteers with, which turns out it's a collection of volunteers who are organ recipients, tissue recipients, donors like me, and families of donors who passed away. And they all got together and spread love and information through the community and talked about organ donation and how to register to become an organ donor, just like I did when I was 16 on my driver's license. And for me, I wasn't familiar until that point that this volunteer group existed. It just wasn't in my realm to know that they even existed until my friend called and invited me to join him. And since then, that was 2012, since then I have been volunteering with organ donation advocacy groups, and I have this new community of folks who are like me and very similar to me in advocating for donation. And we're able to do this together. So I actually found a new network or a new community out of donating my kidney that I didn't realize was there. And so I volunteered with the Indiana Donor Network when I lived in Indiana, and now that I'm in Los Angeles, I volunteer with One Legacy, and we talk to people about organ donation on a regular basis, and I am able to connect with folks who are like me all the time, which is a great feeling to find people who are in the same circle with you, and you never even knew that circle existed. So that was an emotional time for me, not having or not knowing there was a home or a circle of friends out there like me, and then I finally found them. So I guess if I would suggest anything, I would say find your people as soon as you can, because they are a great, powerful tool for camaraderie when you may need it. I woke up very early in the morning. I don't remember much of that morning other than moving from one bed to another and kissing my husband goodbye and being wheeled away as I fell asleep. And that is the story of my morning before my surgery. The best moment after my surgery, of course, was seeing my husband's face. When I woke up, I think it was hours after surgery, all groggy, and just looked up and there he was, like he always is. I guess I would say my recovery was about average. I didn't really have much pain after surgery. I was groggy, of course. But I did stay an extra day in the hospital because I had a reaction to the anesthesia. I didn't keep anything down. So I stayed an extra day to make sure I could eat well and function properly before I was discharged. So I was there about 3 days or 2.5 days in the hospital. And because I chose a hospital that was about 4 hours away from my house, they had us stay at a hotel nearby the hospital instead for a week, just to be sure that if anything happened or if there were any problems, that I was close by to the hospital. So I laid around in my hotel bed for about a week, and my husband took care of me because he's fantastic. And I was there for a week. Then I went back to the hospital and had a checkup, and everything was good. So they released me to go home. And I think it was maybe a few weeks of being tired and just kind of having this weird pressure in my stomach that happened for a few weeks, and it almost felt like there was a Nerf ball inside of my stomach, which the doctor explained was just because the tools that were used to work inside of there kind of moved things around. But I just had a pressure, not really any pain. And I think I left out of there with a Tylenol to take. So it wasn't until about a month later that I felt like fully like myself. The weeks after surgery, I was just tired and needed to get my energy back up. And I didn't lift much of anything. Maybe 10 pounds was my weight restriction. So at the time, my job wasn't very physical, so I was able to do that on the computer, which wasn't a problem to do. So I really had about a week of recovery, and then I was back doing many of the things that I did before, except lifting, of course, and then eventually was able to lift and felt like myself again. And it was on Thanksgiving Day of the same year that my husband and I ran a 4-mile race. So a few months after donating, I'm running a lot. It was, well, to me, 4 miles, it was a lot. It wasn't a marathon, but I had never ran in my life, but I wanted to set that challenge for myself. And so my husband and I decided to do the Thanksgiving Galloping Gobbler. And there were 4,000 people who were running on purpose the same race. And him and I, first-time racers, finished right in the middle. So kidney donation really didn't affect my ability to run in the freezing cold on purpose. It didn't really limit me in much of anything that I am able to do or have been able to do. No limits. What I have learned about myself and others through this process is the amazing potential telling a story has for us. And if you think about it, that's a big important piece of all good things that happen in life, is when you hear of someone else doing it, or if you hear of a need, or if you hear of how you can help, folks react to that. And looking at what I did, I reacted to my grandma's stories. I reacted to Katie Couric's news segment on kidney chains. And in the advocacy work that I do now, I tell stories in order to encourage and inspire others to act, right? So the powerful potential of a story, if told well, told often, I've heard before, is phenomenal. It's just a matter of telling the story at the time when someone's hearts and minds are open to hear it. And so through advocacy work that I do now, I hope to reach people when their hearts and their minds are open to becoming donors themselves. If it's getting the heart or the dot on your driver's license, or if it's considering donating a kidney themselves. But the power of a story is very impactful, and I guess I didn't realize that before this surgery, that it is a matter of being inspired by someone's story that prompts others to do something meaningful as well. So after I donated my kidney, my life and my health changed a little, but only for the good, I think. My health was great before, and it is great now. The only thing that I don't do now that I used to do then is if I have, say, a headache, maybe once every other month, I will choose an acetaminophen over an aspirin, which is suggested or recommended by doctors to make sure that you take care of your remaining kidney, is to just think about what kind of pain relief you're dealing with and choose the one that's going to be the less impactful on your kidney. So other than drinking a lot of water, which I tended to do ahead of donating my kidney, I think maybe I do it more now than I did before. So I drink a lot of water, and I am mindful of my salt. So I don't put salt in much of anything, which could probably sounds terrible to some folks, but I don't put salt in anything unless it comes with it. It's already included. So I'm mindful of my salt. I drink a lot of water, and I don't take aspirin. So those are things that have happened since my kidney donation. And my life itself has changed in that I now have this community, this new community of folks like me and very similar to me in the organ donation community that I connect with. And I'm able to volunteer my time to talk with folks and share my story, and hopefully inspire them to also become donors, register to become donors themselves. So that new circle of friends I have, I didn't even know existed before this surgery. Something I didn't expect, I maybe hoped for, but I didn't expect to happen, was that my family grew out of this donation, out of this kidney chain. I was told by my surgeon that sometimes when you are donating a kidney to someone or you're starting a chain, you may never hear from the folks in your kidney chain or whoever received your kidney. You may never hear from them because it's difficult to put in writing or to say what a gift like that means to someone. So he wanted to give me a heads up ahead of time that you may not ever hear from the folks who are in your chain. and I needed to be okay with that. And I was, but I also wanted to give it my best shot to try to make a connection with them. So I wrote a letter. I knew there were 2 people in my kidney chain who received kidneys. And I wrote each of them a letter just to introduce myself and to say hello, and I hope they were doing well, and gave them my contact information. I then sent those letters to my coordinator at the hospital I was at, and then she got them to the transplant coordinators for the 2 people who received kidneys, which is in order to help maintain privacy and confidentiality. That's the process, and I understand it. It took a bit, maybe a month, for those letters to reach those recipients. And I'm really glad I did that, because out of those 2 letters, I got 2 letters. The man from Pennsylvania who has my kidney, his wife wrote me a letter and on behalf of the family, and told me about them and how well he's doing. And the other man who received a kidney, who was actually in the same hospital as I was on the same day getting his kidney, I did not know that at the time. He also wrote me a letter, and he called me, and we remain friends to this day. We talk at least a couple of times a year, and I actually just talked to him last week. So I have a bigger family out of this that I wasn't expecting, and I had to be understanding if I never heard from them, but I'm really glad I did. And I have a new extended family that I'm really thankful to have out of this. I think one of the best things that came out of donating my kidney was the response I received from my community, but also from my family and my extended family. The local paper did a story on me, and one of the bigger papers also did a story on me and the National Kidney Registry and the need for kidney donation. And out of that, that story kind of spread across the country to a point where folks that my husband worked with in other states were mailing him copies of these articles from their local newspapers, which was really heartwarming that story was so impactful that it spread like that. But what was also really cool is that we have several nieces and nephews, and some of them would pretty much take me to show and tell, if it was an article in the paper or if it was just generally, look what my Aunt Ray did. They would talk about it in their schools for whatever assignment they had. If it was a paper to write or a show and tell, I was the topic of some of their assignments. And even now, as the kids get older and they get their driver's license, every single one of them is an organ donor on their driver's license, which may have happened without me donating a kidney, but maybe it wouldn't have if they never would have known. So I think that's a really important impact, that sharing my story and allowing folks to understand how important it is. That's a really good consequence out of this, is that other people also feel empowered to register to be organ donors as well. If you are thinking about being a living kidney donor, the best advice I could give you is to write down a list of questions, from the most common to the wildest, and get answers for them, because you want to have peace of mind. You want your family to also have peace of mind and be able to support you through the process. So no matter how wild and random a question is, find someone to ask it to. There are many, many donors like me across the country, and I'm sure many of them are more than happy to talk with you through all of them, through any of those questions that you have relating to experience, pain, decisions. So definitely find your people and ask the questions in order to be completely confident in the decision. It's a big decision. There's so many people on the transplant waiting list waiting for kidneys, and there's so many people in our community, many who may not even know how to ask if you would give them your spare. But the need is great, and the need will continue to be great if there are folks who are hesitant about making decisions like this. So if you are interested, ask the questions and then go for it.